Well, hello, everybody. This is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to the Rattlecast. We're the biggest freewheeling live stream poetry podcast on the planet, in your ears and on your laptops. For episode number 310, our guest is Roberta Beary. They'll be there in just a few minutes. But before we get in, I should say that Rattle is a publication of the Haiku Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in continuous publication since 1995 and are unaffiliated with any other organization. We just do all this because we love poetry. I know you do too, so please do click on the like button and share. Make sure you're subscribed. Ring the bell for notifications on YouTube. Whatever you can do to help spread poetry on the internet would be much appreciated, especially reviews on iTunes or Spotify. Anywhere you're listening to this or watching this, there's something you can do to help more people do it too, and that's how we get poetry all over the place instead of just in our little niche. We want it everywhere. It makes a better place for the world. So please do make sure you do something to help share this podcast. All right, now we're going to start out like we always do with our Poets Respond poem. And the author, Seth Simmons, who's been on Poets Respond twice before, is teaching his own creative writing workshop right now, so couldn't make it. But I'm going to share this poem and his recording of it. So this was The Killing, and of course, everybody knows what The Killing we're talking about. It's one of the biggest news stories in the last few weeks. And Seth says this about the topic. He says, at least 2 students have been expelled from Texas universities over their reactions to Charlie Kirk's murder, with Texas Governor Greg Abbott explicitly calling for their punishment. And so this is his response to that news story. I'll let him say this in his own words. This is Seth Simmons reading The Killing. Here we go. Oh, hang on one second. Why is that not? One sec. What is that? Let's see. Properties. Okay. Here's Seth Simmons reading The Killing.
And asked what lessons, if any, we could learn from it. The Killing. A few days later, I played the video for my students and asked what lessons, if any, we could learn from it. Don't kill people, said Luke. Don't kill people in a way that inspires other people to kill people, said Amelie. Very good, I said. Martin, you've been quiet. What do you think? The video makes me think anyone could die any time, he said. And that makes me feel very scared, like the structures I've always assumed would protect me can't actually protect me at all. I feel the same way, said Jenna. It's like when I saw his blood spurt out, I thought, that could be my blood, couldn't it? Or yours, or anyone's. And if we want to stay safe, it's basically up to us. You guys are so full of shit, Mira finally cut in. It's been 2 years of people, children, cities massacred right in front of us, and now you're scared of your own mortality? I'd expected this might happen, and I'd made certain arrangements in case it did. These are important tensions you're raising, I said, pressing a button under my desk. Would you care to say more?
And that was Seth Simmons reading The Killing. That was this week's poem on Poets Respond. If you have your own poem about current events, all you have to do is go to rattle.com, submit that poem by midnight Eastern time any week, and we'll publish it possibly on Sunday. And that's the way we always have been doing it for about a dozen years, keeping news and poetry relevant and part of the national conversation. And that chilling poem was one of those things that does that. That was The Killing by Seth Simmons. You get the poem of the day, of course. It's one of the poems of the day by going to rattle.com. I'll scroll down here. Why not? Go to rattle.com and you'll see sign up for our daily poem. Just click on that, put your email address in, and you'll get a poem every day, a new poem originally published in Rattle. And Poets Respond is one of those. So do check that out if you haven't yet. Now we're going to take a quick break and go to our main guest, Roberta Beary. So sit tight and we'll be right back with a whole lot more poetry. And we're back. Thanks for your patience. Like I said, today's guest is Roberta Beary. Roberta first appeared on episode number 133, so go back and check that out. We talked a lot about haiku, a little bit about Haibun. We're going to cover that more in depth today. Roberta is longtime Haibun editor at Modern Haiku and travels the world as Roving Ambassador for the Haiku Foundation. Their new book, Crazy Bitches, right here, includes 80 Haibun selected from poems written over a 20-year period, 2004 through 2024. With Lou Watts and Rich Youmans, Roberta is co-author of Haibun, a writer's guide, which we talk about here all the time because it's such a wonderful book. So it's great to have Roberta back. Hey, Roberta, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me back, Tim. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, it's definitely my pleasure. You know, Katie especially, and me too, we love Haibun and haiku so much, and you're a big part of that, like teaching us how Haibun work through that wonderful book that you put together with the other two great editors of contemporary Haibun. And it's really cool to have you on post that book because that book is really fun to read. But let's start out by reading one of the Haibun from Crazy Bitches. Where do you want to go first?
I'd like to read 1883 diary fragment, Belfast Lunatic Asylum, serious bids only, page 13. It is Sunday, day 10 of solitaire and milky porridge. Last night I metamorphosed into a phantom sleepwalker of empty hours. Now my brain is housed in catatonic reveries. Bits of fragmented bone decay the wretched inferno of my 40 years. I vow that when my young bride returns, I will fashion for her pleasure a silver tray of rattles and rosebuds. Once more will she warble notes of yearning. Until then, I weave my waiting hours into a basket, sometimes nightmares, sometimes joy. Threading the narrative, Runaway Moon.
Yeah, and that was 1883 diary fragment, Belfast Lunatic Asylum, serious bids only. And there's a picture. There are a lot of artwork included of this book too. And there's a painting right here. This is The Child Bride from 1883 by John Collier. And so there's that photo. So is this a direct ekphrastic poem, Roberta?
It is, and I like doing those, but there's, if you do them, it's best to either get permission, which is of the painter, which is kind of difficult, or use something in the public domain, which is what I did. And then the painting led me to the year, and I really wanted a catchy title, and I played around with different titles. I wrote the prose. I had the painting. I played around with all sorts of different titles. I tweaked the prose a bit. And the very last thing I did was the haiku, which I spent a lot of time on because I wanted something that would link to all four things in this case, the painting, the title, the prose, and the haiku. And it was a real challenge, but I was very happy with the outcome.
Yeah, well, we'll look at that again. It's this is the haiku that finishes out that Haibun, threading the narrative, Runaway Moon, and then the painting again, The Child Bride. So we talked a little bit about Haibun last time you were on the show, which was 200 almost episodes ago. So that must have been, just by my quick math, like 4 or 5 years ago. So
sounds right. I think it was maybe around the pandemic, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was a pandemic era episode. And in the time since, you've published, like we mentioned already, the wonderful Haibun, a writer's guide with Lou Watts and Rich Youmans, who have been on the podcast earlier this year. We did a special episode or a special issue of Rattle about the Haibun, which was really fun. And it does seem like the Haibun in the last 5 years or so, maybe since you've been on the show, has really taken off. It feels like one of the most exciting forms of poetry to me. Has that been your experience? Do you think there's sort of a bloom for Haibun right now?
It is. It's kind of, it was on a slow burn for a long time, and now it's just caught fire. And as I'm sure you get a lot of submissions in that form, and I do as Haibun editor at Modern Haiku. It's hard, I'm trying to stay fresh and stretch the form and the boundaries of it, and also write quality pieces. So I challenge myself, I challenge myself to a very high standard. And unfortunately for some people, I also hold other submitters to the high standard. So I think the book has helped explain things for people who are kind of new to Haibun or finding their way. But I just want to say one thing, which is I spent a long time sort of honing my craft, years and years and years. And I didn't just like dash off a Haibun, win a prize, and then say, oh, no, why didn't you accept me here? Why didn't you accept me there? And I think Haibun is it's one of those forms that it almost picks you. You, you, a lot depends on the poet, whether or not they write successful Haibun, and it cannot be rushed. It's a form that cannot be rushed. So I just wanted to, when the book came out, the idea was, and first I have to say, I would not have been able to write this book without the two co-authors, Lou Watts and Rich Youmans. I mean, I had been sitting on this book proposal. I had a publisher and everything. I'm extremely lazy. And for, I don't know, 18 months or something. And Lou Watts dashed off this outline and got things rolling. And then Rich did all the history thing. Anyway, it came together, all our three strengths, So I would have to say that now I feel like I can kind of try different things in the form, but in the first part of Crazy Bitches, which goes backwards in time, in three sections, and the very earliest Haibun it's in the last section, which is called Part 3, To See in the Dark. And I was, when I was looking them over, I could see myself finding my way.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's kind of interesting to step outside myself and see what was going on there.
Yeah, that is always so fascinating. Like looking back at the you were when you wrote the original poems, and some 20 years ago for some of these poems. How much? Last time we talked about Haibun on that episode 133, we had a sort of a simple definition of it. Just haiku interspersed some kind of commenting on some other writing. I think we even said prose. Has your idea of what Haibun is changed at all, or been refined or honed since then?
Maybe it's been like radicalized. I actually read your definition. You're in Katie's today, and I was trying to, it works for me, but there's so many definitions. Mm-hmm. I think that's why the individual voice is so important.
Yeah,
and also that you have to be true to your individual voice and not try to please an editor. I do get, lots of submissions that are not in my voice, but sort of the things I write about. And sometimes I just want to tell people, this is all a compilation of, 30 years of different experiences or something. But I think the definition has changed. Yes, I do feel it has changed. I think it's constantly changing. It's like fluid. And my definition has to include something that stays with the reader, that the reader will think about and also complete the Haibun based on their own experience. I think I've talked about that before, but that's what I don't spoon feed people things. So and when I get things where everything's tied up neatly, I don't, especially with like a big, huge topic like war, for example, I don't accept those. So I think it's very refined form. Like you have to refine your craft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it's interesting to highlight that feature of the Haibun because I'd say all poetry should be completed by the reader, just in general. Like there should be some kind of movement and leap and thing that's coming together in a surprising way that you have to participate too, and I think so often poems fail because they tell the reader what they're supposed to think eventually, you know? And so that would apply to everything. But with so much with Haibun, which is fascinating about it, is that you see it right on the page. You know, you can really see where you're supposed to be putting the pieces together yourself, which is very different from a traditional poem where there's sort of a sense of completeness, even though you still should be doing that, I think. So it's really interesting to hear that part of the definition. Yeah.
I also think that a lot of not just beginning Haibun writers, but also what I call seasoned Haibun writers, certain poets, they don't trust the reader to get the Haibun. You know, they sort of like Hansel and Gretel, they leave little clues, and then at the end, either in the haiku or somewhere else, they just say what you're supposed to be feeling, and this is about this, you know, something like that. And that I tell you, that really crushes me, Tim. When that happens, I just get kind of sad.
Yeah.
You know, especially when I know it's people I know from the global community of haiku, you know, that what some people call the Japanese forms, but I just call short form poetry.
Yeah. Well, I definitely can relate. I think the reading Haibun as submissions, which we both had that experience of, you know, it's so sad to read really interesting writing and then get to the end of it and realize that the haiku didn't go anywhere, that didn't add anything to it except for summarizing what was going on at the end, or you know, or completing the poem like any kind of ending could, didn't have that kind of shift that involves the reader and makes it pieces to put together into this like swirling mass that's more than the sum of its parts, I guess. And so, yeah, definitely true.
The next poem I wanted to talk about a little beforehand is all about time shifts, which is another thing that fascinates me about the Haibun form. You know, I call the remote past, the recent past, the present, the future, all these different times, if done well, will work. You know, there'll be like a continuous movement, and the reader is almost not aware of it until they have sat with the Haibun a few times or read it aloud.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you want to read that?
Yeah, this one is called Grief, the Uncut Version. Childhood desk. I traced initials, no longer mine. Life is a scratchy film reel that plays in your head, your mother swanning into the solarium that overlooks the pool. Life is her eyeing you from her love seat perch. On her lap, pink crocheted squares and the latest Dick Francis. Life is you laughing when she says, Roberta, all kidding aside, you could stand to lose a few pounds, maybe eat more salads. And even though you will sell the Florida condo, life is spending an hour looking at its stage photos, zooming in on what your mother calls the solarium and you call the sunroom just to hear her brusque correction. Life is the warmth of the sun on your face as you curl up under her afghan no one else wants while reading Dick Francis for the umpteenth time. Life is letting the book fall from your hands as you close your eyes, a scratchy film reel playing in your head, your mother swanning into the sunroom, solarium, sunroom, solarium, sunroom. 10 years gone, clouds shift, a broken stairway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was a Grief, the uncut version. Again,
Yes.
These are Haibun from Crazy Bitches, the new book, collecting them together by Roberta Beary.
I wanted to just tell you, I spent an agonizingly long time on one part of this prose, which was, and even though something is like, even though you will sell the Florida condo. So you know, the narrator, in this case, it is me because I say Roberta, quote my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I had, even though you stole the Florida condo, because that's actually more correct grammatically,
Hmm.
but I felt it disrupted the flow. So I gave myself permission to keep, to sort of put it in where all the grammarians can tell me what that tense is. You will sell, some kind of future, I don't know. Um, uh, and, some editors would have had a problem with that because I've had people come back to me as editors and say this doesn't quite work, because that was in the past and you put it in the future. And there's all sorts of, as I said before, time shifts going on in this one. Looking back in this thing that I think about constantly. I can't tell you how many Dick Francis mysteries. He's been dead a long time. I think maybe he died in 2008. I'm not sure when he died, but I'm just like reading them as my comfort, And my mom, she actually died in 2013. So I had the haiku, the first one, kind of just, kicking back and not going anywhere. I have this pile of haiku like that. They just like sunbathe all day by the pool,
Hmm.
and they're waiting to, go somewhere, get picked up. And I just thought, I can't remember the sequence, but everything finally fit. But this one took me a very long time. It started out as in a I think a poetry workshop with I think it was with Sarah Freely. If anybody ever takes her workshops, they're great. And Haibun comes from all sorts of places. I just thought, is this flash? Is it a prose poem? Can I make it Haibun? I really wanted to do something with it, but I didn't think anybody would really get it,
Hmm.
actually, because it's very personal. But I think it won the Touchstone Award this year. So,
Well, congratulations.
uh, and uh, it was published in McQueen's Quinterly, I believe. And it's just, I do believe in sending your stuff out to as many places as possible, not necessarily places that only publish Haibun. And so that's another thing I would like to encourage people do send to Rattle,
Hmm.
because it's rare that such a quality journal is so open to Haibun.
Yeah, well, we definitely love it, and we have a whole contingent. There's a Rattle Poetry Prize finalist that's a Hive too, who's
Oh,
somebody
okay.
who's probably here right now watching, who learned through your books and sharing stuff here, the
I
forum, and
think
did a
I
really
think I
wonderful
read
job.
that
Yeah,
one. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and
yeah.
and I remember that I think Katie Dozier wrote somewhere, posted something about for those people who didn't win. Um, I've entered 4 times or something like that. She said, I have entered. I mean, one year I was a finalist, but I have entered. I continue to enter every year because I want to support the journal, and I just, it's one of those things where I stop counting how many times I've entered. I have a
Uh,
few things like that.
well, I'm so glad you do, Roberta. I want to talk a little bit more about this poem, just in the way you mentioned it at the top of shifting time. And do you think that it's difficult, and we probably don't want to talk in absolutes, but do you think it's necessary for the form to have some kind of big shift in the voice or the perspective or something between the different parts? Like I
Not
think.
necessarily between the different parts, but I think it always, I don't want to say always never, like they say in marriage counseling, don't say always never, but I do say always never anyway. Uh, I've seen cases where just one little change in the haiku to the present, even though the prose is written in the present, but you can tell it's long ago,
Mhm.
like a childhood memory, but in the present, that it just deepens um, the haibun, the sort of the connectivity with the reader. It's broader and it can reach a broader audience. And also, sometimes the poet, as an editor, um, if you submit early, in the reading period to Modern Haiku, and I think your Haibun, I forget what that phrase is, has legs or something. I'm probably saying it wrong, but anyway, has bones, something like that is pretty good. Sometimes I'll work with the poet, and a couple of times I've suggested, can you come up with a different haiku that, deepens it? And they have, and it's just made all the difference, like putting something in the present tense or of put a record, including making the link between the title and the prose. That's very hard to do. So I wouldn't say, all of them should be like that, but sometimes, especially if it's not quite working because you're kind of spoon feeding everything, like a time leap is a good thing to try.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's definitely true. I heard, Lou Watts was on, and he mentioned you working with him to edit a haiku, and so that being one of the things that made the whole form click for him at some point years ago. So definitely is something you do. Let's read the next one. I think next up was The Story of the Woman in the Poster.
Yeah, this is another ekphrastic one. This one, I'll just read it and then we can chat. Virginia turns on the gas lamp as dusk settles on cobblestones. She moves to her window seat, watches the fairies dancing in the blue flame. She doesn't question what she sees. The time for questioning passed 10 days ago when the voices came back. She prepares her writing instruments and paper. No need for further discussion about her state of mind. No need for Leonard suggesting she try a new treatment for what can't be cured or endured. Always a careful writer, she spends the next hour composing a letter to her husband. She signs it with her familiar flourish, dotting all 3 I's, then wills herself to stare at the fairies dancing in the flame. But the letter won't let her be. Virginia feels its weight in her pocket, as heavy as a bag of stones. Riverwalk, the white space between words.
Yeah, powerful haiku at the end of that one. That was The Story of the Woman in the Poster, and then again an ekphrastic Haibun with this portrait of Virginia Woolf from 1972, photographer unknown. Yeah, and that was Roberta Beary once again reading The Story of the Woman in the Poster.
Yeah, this one I did do a bit of research, which I don't normally do. Like those people who write historical fiction are always doing like 5 years worth of research. As I said before, I'm very lazy, so I had taken several undergraduate and graduate classes on the novels of Virginia Woolf and her contribution to the form of the novel. So, and I had seen her, I do these literary homages, tours. So I've been to Bloomsbury several times over the decades. And I just thought I had read her biography, I think by her nephew or her grandnephew, I'm not sure. But I'm just, she had a lot going on in her life. There was the blended family, the abuse, alleged abuse by her stepbrothers, her untreated illness, mental illness, whatever it was. And I'm trying to get all that into this Haibun. And also, I think, suicide, I didn't want to use the word suicide in this, but I wanted the reader to get that, the reader who doesn't know about Virginia Woolf to get that, that this is a Haibun about suicide and also about writing. Like, will writing save you? Well, it didn't say Virginia Woolf, so. But I also don't think it's like a shame factor. I don't think suicide is a shameful thing. I think it should be talked about more. So there was a lot going on in my head when I was writing this, and this was another one that took a long time. And again, the I could not think of the title, but then when the title came to me, it was to me obvious. and I couldn't understand why it had taken so long for me to think of the title. And the haiku was one of those that I also agonized over all different kinds. I had, I don't know, 10 or 20 different things I was writing. And then when I wrote this one, it just clicked.
Yeah.
So,
Is that usually the process for the haiku? Like you're writing something which is like, swimming in it, in your imagination, I guess, is what happens when you're writing something. And then you have all these other feelings swirling around it within the waters of that topic. And then is it like an iterative kind of process usually to get to the haiku that embodies it while leaping into a new direction and deepening it? Is it usually a process of trying a lot of different things until realizing the one that works right?
well, it is, and when it's something really important to me, like this was very important to me, this Haibun. I also write other Haibun that we'll see, as we go on, that I write as I've said so many times before, I write for the people that don't have a voice, that feel that they've been silenced and can't talk. So, but it depends. I guess it depends on the Haibun itself. I mean, some of them come more easily to me than others, but I do spend. I've never like been able to dash one off,
Mm-hmm.
and I go back and I wouldn't even say tweak. I mean, some of them I just redo completely, and so I don't save the different versions, but sometimes I find old notebooks where I write in longhand first, and I compare those to what finally was published or what I felt was of submittable quality, which is a whole other subject. Um, again, the high standards. So that one, yeah, that one, I had all these, prior knowledge based on my studies about Virginia Woolf, but I wanted to get to something deeper than that, not just oh yeah, she put stones in her pocket and went to the river and drowned herself, she was
Mm-hmm.
having a really bad episode the night before and this kind of thing. So I just wanted to kind of honor her also and her writing. Uh, I don't know if where she is right now. If she read it.
Mm-hmm.
Hope I got a thumbs up from her. But yeah, this one I did agonize over finding what I felt was an appropriate and high quality haiku to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a great haiku. Do you want to read the next one? First trimester now.
Yes. Tidal pool. A mermaid floats inside the moon. The doctor says this won't hurt. The doctor says put your feet in the stirrups and open your knees. The doctor says my hands may feel a little cold. The doctor says a slight discomfort may occur for up to 48 hours. The doctor says it's for the best. The doctor says, please leave. We have patients waiting. Blue bin collection, the amniotic sacs, floating leaf.
Yeah, another powerful image to end on, given the topic. That was First Trimester by Roberta
Yeah,
Beary. Yeah.
this one, unusual for me. I had written those two haiku over a period of years, and I really, really liked them, but nobody else did. So I don't get discouraged, when something is, as I say, rejected. That's what I tell myself. I other people say not accepted, declined, or I forget what the other word is. But everybody gets rejection. But as I tell people, if you have something you've written, even a haiku, and you believe in it and it speaks to you, don't give up on it. One day you're going to find some other form, or it's going to get published. You'll enter a contest, whatever. And to me, that these just happen to work really well with this Haibun. So the subject matter, I wanted to emphasize um, the distance, the sort of the coldness of the doctor, uh, that, who for obvious reasons cannot, emotionally connect
Hmm.
with the patient in this kind of situation. But
Yeah. Hmm.
the another, abortion is another topic that I know women talk about it among themselves, but I'm not sure how much else it's out there.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's one of the sort of taboo things that happens a lot more than we talk about. Just as a culture. I think it's one of the great things poetry can address. So there's that other
And
one that we published of yours. I think back in issue
yeah,
47.
genetics, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then every time we
That-
share that or something, there gets a big response every time because it's so sort of shocking to get to the end of it. Yeah.
I I had the I've actually had people tell me that genetics is not a Haibun.
Oh, really?
I've had people tell me all sorts of things because my phone number's out there. But I wanted to give a shout out. This was published by Alan Summers, who's I know who's in your Haibun issue,
Hmm.
and he's does have these various journals and is very supportive also of the forum. I like when people are supportive of me. I like to be supportive back. I think that's good for the community. So, but yeah, this one, I had a couple of editors say about the the Blue Bean collection, Yam Yannick Sucks Floating Leaf. How can you have a floating leaf, Roberta? It doesn't make any sense.
Hmm.
So I just figured if I have to explain that to you, you are not the publisher for this one.
Yeah, well, exactly. But it was interesting how for this one in particular, the two haiku, which are so strong, how the prose illuminates that, and written in a really stylistic way too. I think it's one of the leaps that Haibun have been making is having a lot more attention to the craft of the prose part. But I always go back to this thought. Way back to issue number 47 we did, where the interview was with Richard Gilbert, and he was talking about gender haiku in Japan, and the way that knowing people's backgrounds and life story is so important to the haiku themselves. We have this sense of the death of the author when everything should be on the page and nothing matters besides for that, the sort of creative writing program version of literature. But then the reality is that the life and the backstory matters and stuff too. And so, this middle section illuminates so much of those two haiku that surround it and sort of amplify
Right.
that, I think, is the effect. Do you feel that
I
way?
gotta say, I love what you're saying, Tim. When, and quoting Richard Gilbert, whom I also love, he is very scholarly. I recommend his books. I sometimes kind of miss the main point in what he's saying, so that's on me. But I do recommend him, and when I won one of these prizes from my haiku back in 2005, I got to spend like a whole bunch of time with him. It was a blind contest with Kusumakura, and you won a trip to Japan to actually hang out with Richard Gilbert, which is kind of cool.
That is,
And
yeah.
they don't give that prize anymore, unfortunately. But I mean, they still do the contest, but the prize is like a certificate. Because then I won it again 20 years later, and I was like, "What's my trip to Japan?" So, but yeah, it's. I think for me, the Highland, they're personal but also universal.
Hmm.
So that's what I was talking about, the high standard, the high bar I set for myself. I do get a lot of subs that they're personal, but they're not universal. And also they're universal, but they're sort of lacking a connection with the reader. So it's not an easy form. That's what I tell people. As you can't just like write one, get published, and then this is going to be your form that you think you're, you know,
Hmm.
going to do great at.
Yeah.
I- that's my opinion. Other people
Hmm.
have other opinions.
Yeah. Well, do you want to read the next one, Lunch Break? And this is one
Yeah,
from
this
Rattle.
one's
Yeah.
right. This one's very close to my heart because one of the things I like to do when I'm writing, is put myself in the head of the person in the Haibun, in the prose. And for some reason, this particular one, although I did change a few things in the prose, but I don't know that my inner voice was really on fire with this one. Lunch break. The fridge is empty, which means someone stole my sandwich and stuck me with this blueberry yogurt. Expiration date 2 weeks ago. Who stole my lunch? Where is it at home? Retrace my steps, retrace. Did I take my lunch off the counter? I'm not sure. I was in a hurry. I set the alarm. Remember setting the alarm. Did I lock the door? I'm sure I did. I set the alarm and locked the door. My stomach is making weird noises. I'm starving. A slightly dated yogurt should be okay, or maybe not. I might get sick. Salmonella, E. coli. I know the symptoms: fever, diarrhea, abdominal cramps. I'm feeling queasy. It's this yogurt staring at me. I'll move it behind the baking soda where no one looks. If I'm not careful, this job will kill me. It really will kill me. I remember setting the alarm. Did I lock the door? I'm sure I did. I'm sure. Black fly on the cutting board. Last night's dream.
Yeah, so I love the leap in this one to the haiku. That's the thing, that there's a way that it makes perfect sense and fits, but you can't quite articulate why it's the perfect way to end it. And so with this one, how did you arrive at that?
Well, I tell you that I can easily talk to how I arrived at the prose because I used to work in a great big bureaucracy, which I won't mention the exact name of, but for 15 years. And basically, I heard these kinds of conversation tidbits uh, almost every day around lunchtime. It wasn't just one person either. We were sort of a hodgepodge of uh, people very concerned about one's lunch and the uh, commingling lunches in the one refrigerator in the office. But I wanted something that would link to the prose in the title, of course, the Holy Trinity of Haibun, and we talk about it in the book. And so I got the idea of the cutting board somehow came to me, and I thought, could I do a haiku about a cutting board because that links with the fridge and that's lunch break, but not just any old run-of-the-mill haiku. I wanted to make it something that the reader would think about. And the black fly, that's so cutting board came to me first, then black fly, and then last night's dream. I still remember this, even though it was quite a while ago, right? The issue, but I still remember that haiku because it took about 20 times longer to get that haiku than the prose.
Yeah, and there's something, some aspect of letting go, to come up with a leap that far. There is a way when we daydream, our minds wander and we don't even know how we got there, and it feels kind of like you have to find a way to get into that mental space where you can let your imagination surprise you. And do you think, is it often a process like meditating on the prose and letting yourself go?
I think, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think you can't always be on the go and for the Haibun form, you can't go from I'm gonna this was my schedule, around when I was writing this, wake up, make the lunches, get the kids up, from school, go to work full day, come back, go grocery shopping, get up at 3 a.m. and write my Haibun or something. And then so there has to be, I mean, the whole form takes a lot of thought and a lot of not thought, but what you were saying, like shutting off your mind and letting images come to you. One of the things I do practice, which took me a long time, like 5 years in Japan in the 90s, helped with a little bit with that because I studied haiku there when I was working for a Japanese law firm, is like focusing on the outdoors, small things. What I would see outside, like a dandelion, or, a bird, which I can only name a robin and a blackbird, um, a bunny rabbit, something that takes you out of yourself and shows you that you're connected to to Mother Earth, for lack of a better term. And it for me, because I have, like one of my Haibun in here is called the hamster wheel spins at the funeral or something like that. I do have one of those racy minds,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to really learn how to slow it down. One day I'll write a Haibun about insomnia and how all my little things I try, and those articles that, the newspapers, this will try this, wear socks, wear socks to bed, count backwards from 303. I'll put all that in my Haibun. So that's one of my big subjects that I haven't really tackled too much. I have one at 3 a.m., and here's something like playing cards with the Grim Reaper or something at 3 a.m., but that's about it. So it is, you're right. For me, everybody's different, but for me to get some of these haiku wrenched out of myself, I have to shut everything down and just daydream. I mean, I used to daydream all the time. Then you grow up, and I one of the things I did when I was living in Ireland was I started cloud watching. In Japan it's moon viewing,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a bathtub that the owner of the house had put a, a skylight. So I'm a big bath person. I like taking long soaks. That's where I get a lot of my ideas now that, I have more time after my 35 years of pushing papers. So I would look up and I could see the clouds in in the west of Ireland, and it's mesmerizing. And that way, the thoughts, the images would connect
Mm-hmm.
for later, for when I went back to my study and wrestled with the Haibun
Yeah.
I was working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that is the magical thing that our daydreams have something to tell us, and we kind of forget that, but they do, and that's really the
I
stuff of
also,
poetry too.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I also think, you have to credit Rattle, because if you had not done that call for the tribute call for mental illness, I would not have written that one. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I did want to do something on the subject. I felt it was important. It was really good that you were doing that tribute issue. Another, secret thing that a lot of people don't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I said, okay, this is the Timothy Green standard now. I'm setting the bar high for myself once again. And I just, I've had people say to me, you overshare, say too much, it's not good. You should keep a distance between yourself and the poem and all this kind of stuff. It's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do that, it comes out all crappy. So I don't do that.
Well, I should say at this point, if you're enjoying this conversation, please make sure to click the like button. There are always twice as many people watching live have clicked like yet. And when I say that, that helps those numbers jump up, and then we get more readers later and
Yeah.
listeners. So please do click that like button. Also, if you have any questions for Roberta, leave them in the chat window on YouTube or Facebook, and I can pass anything along. Helps if you put the big question in all caps first so I can see it as I'm scrolling through all the great comments that you're leaving. Also, Roberta,
And
before we do that, I want to. We haven't talked really about the book as a whole yet. You mentioned the really interesting fact that these go backwards in time, which is fascinating too. A lot of times you would see a collection like this, selected poems go forward in time. So that's an interesting choice too. And then the title, "Crazy Bitches," is so interesting and striking as a
that's
title.
that's got
Yeah.
a story, the title. Well, first of all, I have got to give a shout out to my brother Kevin. Some people think I am married to Kevin Beary, who did the artwork in the book. This is my my real Irish twin. We're born
Mm-hmm.
exactly a year apart, and he's does everything. My brother, he's taught in University of Firenze. He's written plays, books, does artwork. Um, and when I asked him for some uh, of his paintings, unlike I have two other siblings, um, he got right on it. And, that really, I mean, things came together. That's what I mean. There was almost like yeah, it took 20 years, but then when I finally got off my butt and worked on it, things came together. And Crazy Bitches was a placeholder title to get me to work on the manuscript. I had this 2013 MacBook Air that, with I had to like delete a whole bunch of files to have the manuscript for this in there. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. I I wanted to get myself, this was when I was in Ireland, to work on it so that I could get it done. It was one of these things, when people say they're still researching, they haven't written their book yet because they're still doing research. I don't want to be one of those people. And I worked very closely with Claire McQueen, and we went back and forth on what to include and what not to include. And then she told me she loved the title. And then my husband, Frank Stella, said he loved the title, which was, if you've met him, you'll know that's like a big deal. And I also I do these random things with strangers, like I do a poll. So in Ireland, in a small town of Westport, there's a school, it's the equivalent of the high school, all girls Catholic high school. I think they call it secondary school, Sacred Heart. And they were studying in the library when I had this cover that I was trying to decide, the proof, is this good or not? So they were doing an essay on Macbeth for class.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave them my idea of what to write about Lady Macbeth, and how she's been maligned all these years. They probably didn't do that, but I said, would you buy a book that looks like this if you saw it in a bookstore? They were like 17, 16, 17, maybe 18, the last year. And they all went, I would, I would, I would. So then I just went up to everybody else. It's a little library, so it wasn't like a huge thing. And I said, would you buy this book? I only had the cover, I didn't have the book. And they all said yes. And then I asked the librarian, was there any restrictions on the title? Was it too racy or whatever? And he said, no, we have much more, much more, we have much more dirty titles than that. So anyway, so that's how the title came to be. And when I was, how you put everything down when you're working on a collection and you look at it on the floor and do all this stuff getting right. So I just had this epiphany to kind of go backwards in time because I wanted like what I considered the strongest pieces at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I also kind of did it in alphabetical order in the three sections. And I just put that up to the Haibun universe, like if this works, it works. And I hope it does. And then, as I said, Claire McQueen, she's really good with the nitty gritty, the attributions and the doesn't count in the index and all that kind of stuff, which I'm terrible at. So that worked really well. And also, I just kind of wanted, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, Tim, but people said, you're so lucky, Roberta, you found a publisher for this book. I also said that about this book. Luck had nothing to do with it. Okay. For Haibun, a writer's guide, I go to these flash fiction festivals, and I got to know the curator of those, and she writes, she publishes craft books, not one on Haibun, but on other things. And she had an interest in that. Crazy Bitches, I actually approached the publisher and said, are you interested? And for me, I identify, as many different things, male, female side. I don't want to get into all that now, but when I was growing up and when I was a young attorney, I just could not open my mouth. You might find that hard to believe. I would never ask for things for myself. I would just think, oh, if people will recognize me and somebody's going to offer me something, or I'll get that promotion, or so, and it took, I don't know, 15, 20 years or something for me to figure out that I better start speaking up for myself. So, yeah, that's better late than never, right? So.
Yeah, definitely. Um, thinking about the title, do you feel like it's sort of a meta version of titling a Haibun? Like, do the same thoughts go into it? Like, you want something that connects it together, but also is a leap, is also evocative, makes you want to read the book.
Right. But
Is
there's
there
a
anything that's
lot of,
yeah? Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I've been called a crazy bitch so many times in my life, and I don't think it's pejorative. I don't think crazy bitch is a pejorative term. I know the people who are deemed such, by, the media or something like that, or I don't want to get into politics too much, but or exes or anything like that. But it's a term I've heard quite a bit throughout my
Mm-hmm.
life, and it's like I wear it with pride. Like it means something. It means something beyond the shallow phrase that it doesn't hurt me when people say that about me. It means, oh, you think I'm interesting. You think I have something to say. So what I was trying to do is in the title and how it connects with the Haibun is that these are strong people in the Haibun. Yeah, they're not what you would say is your everyday, whatever the idea of normal is, which I also have ideas about, but they matter. They've had some experiences, and some their experiences, if you read about them, might either broaden your point of view or actually heal you, or help you with a hurt that something you haven't addressed. All sorts of things went into this,
Mm-hmm.
and but mainly it was that somebody reading this would say, "Oh, that happened to Roberta," or Roberta knows somebody that happened to, because a lot of these are
Mm-hmm.
fictionalized or compilations of different people's experiences that I've just, eavesdropped and taken and changed. And and yet, yeah, you matter. You're not nothing just because something bad happened to you at some point in your life. You can
Mm-hmm.
make something good out of that and actually help people. So I do have like very big goals for my writing, but I have also been really delighted when people come up to me. I mean, I get emails all the time from people who say, I read this and it changed me, and I don't feel, like I was the only one. I get these emails from all sorts of people all around the world, and those are what I call the good emails. I also get a bunch of other emails, which I won't go into.
Well, yeah, definitely. We've been there. Well, there's three Hyben left you wanted to share, and I want to make sure we get to them before we run out of time. So, do you want to do This Is Just to Say next?
Yeah, this one is another of the ones that I just wanted to say to not just one person, because I know more than one person, kind of has this way of speaking, but also, you are okay. You can be this person, and you can do good in the world. It's kind of universal in that way and personal in another way. So this is just to say, or Carly calls me for the fifth time on her birthday. My hair is falling out. Last week I dyed it green to match my eyes. I got a Celtic cross inked on my back. Do you think that's weird? A big tattoo at 45. Do you think I'm weird? It turns out, which is so strange, Alexander the Great and me share a tiny segment of DNA. Did you know he conquered the world at 23? What was I doing when I was 23? Do you remember? Asylum Moon, the twisted trail of chromosomes. I don't shower anymore. It's too much trouble, and I don't trust the way the water feels on my skin. Plus, I can't take off my headphones for when the angels sing. Do you think that's weird? I didn't tell the doctor. He still gave me a new prescription. I asked if would it help with the iron. I've got all this iron churning around in my blood. That's why I don't sleep. Alexander the Great never slept. That's where I get it from. It's okay though. Thanks for asking.
There, the insomnia coming in too. That was Roberta Beary reading "This Is Just a Say," or "Carly Calls Me for the 50th time on her birthday." Once again, from the book Crazy Bitches. So we've seen, Roberta, haiku, the sort of classic traditional kind of haibun where you have the title, prose, haiku, and then we've had the haiku, prose, haiku. Now here we've had the prose, haiku, prose. So how do you determine? I think it was Kat Lehman who was on, maybe the Poetry Space actually, but talking about trying to balance sort of the weight of the different parts to get the right balance being the key to that. How do you know what form it's going to take? Yeah.
That's way too over my head. I just to go with the gut feeling. I go with my instinct. I try them in different ways, the haiku, and I see, does this work? Does that work? One thing I do like to do sometimes is to have monoku bookend the prose, like begin with a monoku and end with a monoku. And but I don't think about form until I've written the haibun, and then I like to shake things up a bit sometimes to see what works and what is unexpected. So this one I thought I really, in some haibun, Tim, to me it's very important if you have a great line of prose, final line of prose, to end with that and not have the haiku come after. But sometimes the prose is too heavy, the subject matter is too heavy, and almost to give the reader like a space to breathe, I'll put a haiku there. So it's really, I mean, that's what I was saying. A lot of thought goes into my haibun. I think about all these things, and I think which will the reader, all these different readers, how will they connect? And when I answer the question in this haiku, the question is, what was I doing when I was 23? Do you remember? That's the question. I answer it in the haiku, but I don't answer it directly because I don't believe in that, in saying things directly to the reader. I want the reader to figure it out and also think about, does that make sense, or kind of thing. So it's like a narrative within a narrative within a narrative. And so, or, another way of saying that shorthand is a layered haibun.
Yeah. Well, let's read Barfly next.
Now, this one was one of I think Barfly, I put this in there because it was like my first published haibun, maybe. And was rejected back in the day by Modern Haiku, I believe, as being unrealistic or inauthentic. Sometimes the editors used to give feedback. I was just crushed, because I was just starting to write. So, but anyway, this is another one. I got to give a shout out to my friend Arlette, who provided the picture of me that's next to it. If you buy the book, which I hope you all do. I was really into fringe jackets there in my hippie days. So you'll see, you can't really tell, but it's one of those, whatever they call those fringe jackets, Barfly. I was just a kid in those days, and he was one of the bad boys the nuns warn you about. And my old man told me stay far away from that one. But I couldn't help myself. And when I saw him, he was walking up to me with his Marlboros tucked under his t-shirt, like Marlon Brando with those biceps, and his hair smelled of his last smoke. And he kissed me, one of those long kisses that just ooze out of you and shake up your insides at the same time. But what did I know back then? Not enough, which is why he'll always be the one that got away. Last call, a ceiling fan stirs the tip jar.
It was Barfly by Roberta Beary. And we have a photo of Roberta, too, on the next page. In days gone by, she says. Photo by Arlette Luer Stiep.
Yeah, who lives in Netherlands now, but I went to high school with her
Yeah.
in Queens, New York City, which is where I grew up. Now, I realized when I was giving a talk, I think maybe 20 years ago about this island at some conference, and I was talking about how it was very important that you write in the present tense. And somebody in the audience said to me, "You're writing in the past tense." I said, "Oh, yeah, that's right." You got me there. So I normally would, like if I were writing this one today, I would put it all in the present tense and just to make it, ramp it up a bit more. And then have the reader figure out that, oh, wait, that was a long time ago. And now we are in the present tense with this kind of tipsy woman, um, who's still, in the bar when they're doing last call. And or, is bemoaning some high school romance. Maybe she's 45 or something. So yeah, I had a lot of. I was very new to Haibun here, and I was experimenting. I knew I liked stream of consciousness. I always have ever since, my same class, the form of the novel, when we did Ulysses as an undergrad. And I think, with Haibun, when you're writing the prose, you have to, this is my always never problem, but I will say you have to or you should. It's better if you write in a way that people actually talk, not in a way that they, do expository writing or something like that. Like so I was
Yeah.
that's what I was going for there.
Yeah, yeah. Jack Grapes always said that the founder, sort of the grandfather of Rattle, because it was his class. He was a method writing professor, teacher. He taught method writing like method acting, and he always said, "Write like you
Oh,
talk."
wow.
So
You're
write like
right.
you talk is and pointed out that Shakespeare, people were writing like they talk, even though it was within this beautiful movement, that he was using, and all the form. It was still the way people talked, which is what makes it so compelling.
Yeah, I think the last two, that's from To See in the Dark, the last part of the book. And that's those are my earliest ones. And with Claire McQueen, which to whom I will be forever grateful, really had me get the first attribution and the dates and everything. So I actually could see when everything was published. And it's kind of, yeah, stories backwards in time. But
Yeah.
one thing I do now is, like, people don't use headphones a lot on public transportation or in the theater or if they're in a restaurant, it's blah, blah, blah. I will just listen in. Sometimes I press record and, I don't use everything. I don't use anything, but it sparks my imagination to listen.
hmm Yeah. I wanted to ask, about other, genres. You mentioned earlier being a finalist for the Rattle Poetry Prize a few years ago, and that was for a sonnet. And and you write, flash fiction type things too, in that area. How much would you say you're dedicated to haiku and haibun versus other forms? And is there something in particular that draws you more toward that than
I
other
would
things you write?
say, Haibun, when I found Haibun, I forget whose Haibun I read, that just it's like a real epiphany moment, and real epiphany. Um, I just decided, yeah, that's the form for me. I can do so many things with this. I can be very creative. I can, the ones I was reading at the time, which is like early 2000s, late, 1990s, were mainly travelogues, which are still published quite a bit, and they are as boring to read now as they were back then, because nothing happens. But well, I tell people, one piece of advice can you tell me for Haiba? And I will say, have something happen. Please don't just give me your thoughts and then reiterate them in the haiku. And so I love haiku. I mean, haiku has really saved my life, got me through a divorce, got me through the death of my parents, several years apart. I mean, really did save me several times over. But haibun is the form that speaks to me the most. I have fun with flash fiction. I love all my flash fiction peeps. It's very disciplined form. but I will use that, things I wrote in like a flash workshop and then reinvent as Haibun if I think it's more appropriate form.
Yeah. We were talking at the top about Haibun sort of exploding right now, and there's so much experimentation, more people writing. There's a lot of life and energy behind the form. Do you find other literary magazines outside of the haiku community understanding what Haibun are more than they did 5 years ago? Or do you find it still, we've had, every time we have haiku poets on, we talk about how, the regular, mainstream poetry publishing has no clue what haiku actually are. And Haibun, we have the same problem. We get so many of those, especially the burning Haibun form, which is an interesting kind of erasure, but it's not Haibun at all. Do you find, though, that word is getting out and we're getting some kind of ground?
This expression in Yiddish, all verkackte, that's how I feel about those. There's something where, like, poetry, they have that part of poetry. Poetry magazine has that part that's like, I don't know if it's the Poetry Foundation. Anyway, they have a thing where they define things and they have people write articles. And the one for Haibun is just completely fakakta. So they're really, see, when I said it was about my being lazy, but these two guys really whipped me into shape for this book. I need somebody like that so I can write an essay. I have written essays, but I only write them when I'm solicited, as they say, when people come to me and say, will you write an essay? Yes, I do think that there are all these, it's not as bad as it used to be with these screwy ideas about what Haibun is, but I've read whole books by mainstream poets that purport to be Haibun and are not Haibun. So, I guess they'll get there, eventually. I am trying. I do know a whole bunch of publications, mainly online ones, that publish Haibun. If you send it in as poetry or as a prose poem, they will publish if it's a good one. So that I do see a difference. That's more,
Can you list a few? McQueen's Quinterly being one. What else?
Oh, she knows what Haibun is.
For sure.
I'd say Atticus Review. Where else have I had success? There's well, I tell you, I get a lot of almost from very what I call the highfalutin literary journals. This came to our committee, went past 3, whatever, and then the committee of 5, it was so close, and this kind of thing. So I think that, if you Google, you'll see a lot of other people. I think even Kat Lehman just did a thing on places to publish in the non Japanese forms community. So yeah, there are. I guess I would say Rattle is the top as far as I'm concerned, and then the most exposure. I try to do it by word of mouth also. So I will send people, I'll cut them out when I do a card, like a greeting card or whatever, a birthday card, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's just people have to push themselves if they want the Haibun form to be more accepted and not just say, oh, I'm happy in my little Haibun world with the journals that traditionally will publish only haiku, Haibun, tanka, whatever. You have to have a really thick skin, as you know, to get these rejections and to push yourselves. Where I've gotten, kind of snotty responses back. I've gotten people telling me it's not 575, we're not going to publish it. Like I'm talking big time journals, not fly by night people. And I don't want to get into arguments with people, so I just move on. But I also don't want to be, the teacher. So I don't argue. I just move on. So and one thing I will say, I don't know if this happens to you, Tim, but it's one of my big pet peeves. If an editor has spent time either working with you or commenting on something because you asked for comments or has gotten back to you, it's not like we now have a relationship and we want to keep talking forever about your line or your haiku or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't do that to editors. I know you have a large audience. Editors are hardworking. Most of them do it for free. I mean, yes, some of them get paid, but it's not a good thing to give pushback to editors.
Yeah, well, really good advice for sure. Well, let's close out with one last poem, Irish Twins, one of the most powerful poems in here.
Yeah, this one uh, is also very close to my heart. I will just read it. Irish Twins. We share an attic room. In the corner is an old double bed that smells and sags on one side, my side. Late at night, I hear my heart beat loud, so loud he will hear it. He will think my heart is calling him up the attic stairs. His footsteps are heavy. He smells of Old Spice and cherry tobacco. My eyes shut tight. I know he is there. I feel his weight. Never on my side, always on the side she sleeps. When the bed springs sing their sad song, I fly away, up to the ceiling. My sister is already there. Together we hold hands. Looking down, we see our bodies. We are not moving. We are as still as the dead. Attic rain, the backyard swing, off kilter.
Yeah, it's one of those really heavy-hitting poems, Irish Twins, from this book Crazy Bitches by Roberta Beary, giving voice to so much unvoiced. Roberta, thanks so much for being a guest. It's been a pleasure, sharing your book and talking Haibun. It's always, one of our favorite forums to talk about, Katie's especially, and it's really a pleasure to have you here. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, and thanks so much for having me on. And it's been a joy to talk about the Haibun Forum, and keep on keeping on. Yeah. Everybody out there, just keep on.
Yeah, well, you too. Thanks, Roberta. And once again, that was Roberta Beary with her book, Crazy Bitches, which you can find from McQueen's Quinterly. Also, Katie, we mentioned, I should say, blurbed the book. So if you pick up a copy, you will see this note Katie wrote just to entice you. Beary gets to the root of many different traumas, which are made more accessible thanks to her mastery of the power of the Haibun form. The subtlety of their haiku allows ample space for readers to thread the needle of the story themselves. That balance of interweaving a resonant narrative while allowing readers to have the satisfaction of making the connections themselves is perhaps the most difficult tightrope walk of all when it comes to crafting excellent poetry. Beary manages an impressive feat by nestling the audience right alongside the various voices of the poems as the haiku allow for the space for the readers to make their own connections. So that's what Katie said about it. Crazy Bitches. You can find all of Roberta's work, of course, at robertabeary.com. That's robertabeary.com. So find this book. I've talked about the Unworn Necklace being one of the best books of haiku, a great sequence exploring really a narrative through haiku. So check that out too. Carousel, another wonderful book. So many great books by Roberta. Check those out at our website. Now we're going to take a quick break and go to our prompt lines. And the prompt for this week is this. Right there. Write a poem about a time you got more than you bargained for. Write a poem about a time you got more than you bargained for. This is the prompt for this week. Now, if you have a poem along those lines to share, all you have to do is email it first to promptlines. That's all one word, promptlines at rattle.com. Then I can show it on the screen as you read, like everybody else. And then find the Zoom link, which is about to deploy on Facebook and YouTube. You can join the Zoom, but only if you want to share a poem. Keep in mind, it's a one-page max for the poems. So, you can submit for Poem of the Month, longer poems, but we need to be wary of everybody else's time. Also, 3 minutes max time on camera. So even if it's a one page, but it's like fill up the whole page, just like dive right in. Don't give a big preamble because we really want to get to everybody before everybody starts falling asleep. So make sure you keep conscious of that. And we're going to take a quick break and go to the prompts. So we'll be right back with more poetry. Hey, everybody. Thanks for your patience. We're back with our prompts poems editor, associate editor, my wife, Katie Dozier. Came up a lot in the discussion, too, about Haibun.
I did, which I was very honored by because Roberta Beary is one of my favorite poets, period. Doesn't have to be Haibun poet, just one of my favorite poets. So
Yeah, unafraid to go anywhere, really, which is makes for some compelling poetry. So the prompt for this week, Katie, was to write about a time you got more than you bargained for. And you said you have to say it like, how do you say it?
I don't. In the last episode, it's like you have to say it like more than you bargained for, but I don't know why because my poem definitely isn't like that kind of vibe. But
okay, so funnily enough, on the Haibun issue episode,
I know
you didn't do a Haibun.
I know
and I did though.
Oh, did you? Oh, spoiler.
Yeah.
Okay, well it was funny though because I sat down to write and I was like, well, obviously I'm going to write a Haibun. I mean, Roberta Beary's on this week, so of course I didn't write a Haibun because that's what happens. My brain rebelled against the form that I write by far the most. So I do think it has Haibun like vibes though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
right.
I could hear. Yeah. Okay.
And though you're gonna have to guess what how this even fulfills the prompt. So get ready for it. It's hard. You're gonna fail. Okay. Okay. Typos. Once I scrawled entomology instead of etymology, as if, when waxing on and on about the root of sonnet, a jewel of a beetle scampered by with no apology. When do we lose the will to be astonished? I keep tearing the red wrapping paper off of knowledge. Curiosities, the polish on the floors we don't know how to build. Oddities surround us. Some rhymes we can't redo. But I know this. It is possible to understand without understanding, possible to love without knowing how love exists, that I have fingers and eyes and buttons I like to click, that the star is a star, and this little bit of twinkling came true. I am here for all of this, for all of you.
Yeah, that is I was wondering that actually, how it fits the
Well,
theme.
it's two different ways, okay? So this is based on... I made a Reddit poetry post about why I selected Brian O'Sullivan's poem Re-Entry. And I did in the post accidentally do that where I said entomology and I meant etymology, but it was really obvious in context. But someone was like, I believe you mean not the study of bugs. I'm like, obviously I didn't mean the study of bugs. Anyway, so
people
I
love
got,
to do that.
Yeah, they did. They enjoyed it, but hey, I got a poem out of it. So thank you, Grammar Police. So, or not, some other police, not sure which.
Accuracy.
Accuracy. How dare you define accuracy? Anyway, so I got more than I bargained for because I got a poem out of somebody taking pride in pointing out a mistake that I made. So that's it. And then also just getting more out of life than I bargained for too, because of primarily you. So.
Aw, that's really sweet. Thanks,
I guess
Katie.
I would have been a little bit arrogant if you'd known and said that was the answer.
Aw. Well, that's
Okay.
really sweet. Well, that was Typos by Katie. Mm-hmm. All right, and then this one is mine, as promised, a Haibun. This one's called Agent Orange. Agent Orange. The assignment was to share a case of real-life irony. So I told the class about the time my father got drunk and cut the tumor from his own hand so he wouldn't have to pay for the surgery. It was a third lesion, which he blamed on the Army's covert ops. Uh-oh. Oh, there you go. He watched as the first two were gouged out at a local anesthetic and thought, I could do that. And he could, apparently. He couldn't keep it sterile, and it was hospitalized anyway. He almost lost a finger to the infection, and the bill was twice what it would have been. The teacher gave me full credit for creativity. Bullet hole in the story, shot clean through his shin. There you go. So that is my Agent Orange.
Did you know you're going to write a Haibun when you sat down to write?
I did not, actually. I just started writing. I was like, this is not really going anywhere. I need something more. So I gave it a little kick in the pants with a haiku.
Well, that's the real hard knock school of Haibun, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, that was Agent Orange. Now let's see what everybody else has for us this week. And let's see. So first up, let's go to Rick Pongratz.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Rick.
Hey, Rick. Yeah, great to see you.
It's great to be back again. Thank you. Mine's a little bit longer, so I'm gonna just let you know that it's about this last week we had to say goodbye to our family dog, and This is about when we adopted her from the shelter and how she was more than we bargained for. So,
Aw, that's really sweet. Yeah.
That's right.
so uh, from release to letting go for Ariel. She was let out after 6 months inside. This wasn't exactly a Shawshank Redemption situation. She didn't need a rock hammer worn down to the nub. She had her claws had it come to that. But in the end, overcrowding and whatnot, she found a new life with us after growing up rough, kept on a chain or in a cage. She didn't know to expect food, stealing anything she could find. For months, we found dishware, once dirty, lying in corners, hidden next to couches, licked clean. Once we took a roasting dish with 6 chicken thighs and 4 halves of acorn squash out of a 375-degree oven. We stepped away for a toddler diaper emergency. 5 minutes later, all 6 thighs and 2 of the squash were gone. There she was in the kitchen, on all fours, hacking and coughing. But she was family, and over time the thieving diminished. Although 2 months before she died, a whole pizza went missing off the counter, and no one saw it happen. But there she was, with a sore belly, and not eating her usual dinner an hour later. As a parent, I wasn't prepared for my daughter's first taste of mortality. My 10-year-old lay spooning our elderly black lab on the floor, tears streaming down her face. It is the night before we all know I have to take her to the vet to say goodbye. I see Ariel's pain, and she knows it's time. But my daughter, she is spring and blossoms and possibilities. She climbs into my lap and asks, Daddy, will she feel betrayed? I can only break and tell her I will hold her in my arms. She will know she is loved, and we will set her free.
Yeah, it was a sweet remembrance. So sad for
Yeah,
that. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that,
And
Rick.
so hard to write when it's so fresh and everything. So thanks for choosing to share it with us, and I hope everyone is healing from that as well as can be possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Rick.
thanks, Rick.
Take care.
Yeah. And there's Rick Pongrass with Release and Letting Go for Ariel. Next, let's go to Amanda Harris.
All right. So, unfortunately, I couldn't really write about any pet stuff, but I did write something to my dead Palm Pilot. As I'm reading this, I am going to keep a guinea pig I have who's sick named Cosmos in my head. Like, this reading is a tribute to that very, very sweet animal.
Oh.
All right. To my dead Palm Pilot. My breath is a typhoon that contains in it all of my small doings. Some of them are important. Some of them carry the heft and the size of an ant flipped sideways. My breath is square-shaped. It has small buttons that either confirm or cancel my afternoon. What are afternoons anyway? Afternoons are things meant for the bored or the unsafe. My afternoon is an island. It kicks, it cries, it asks, like the device that plots it out to be measured.
Yeah, related to my dead Palm Pilot. Thanks so much for sharing that, Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was Amanda Harris with To My Dead Palm Pilot. Let's go next to a first-time caller, I believe Leanne Collins.
Yeah, hi. Thank you.
Hi.
Hey, Leanne, yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Yeah.
I'm just really discovering Rattle, and I'm so glad I am.
Oh, yeah, we're so glad
great.
too. Yeah.
I'm
So-
very impressed with the work you've done, obviously over a long period of time. Anyway, I usually do a lot of revisions, so this was a new experience for me. I ended up being really challenged to write on a subject that is so close to home. I haven't been able to bring it into poetry for many years. And so I brought it into a sonnet in order to condense it even further. This is called Careful Now What She Wishes For. Hers was a young heart, a bleeding heart, and fortune had been kind. The world doesn't need another baby, she sighed, and wished for one, a needy one, a special child, waiting for the family good enough. He found an agency, Aid to Adoption of Special Kids. A long process, then meeting with the social worker, then the rumpled photo albums filled with stories, like the teenage twins with cerebral palsy, waiting from their wheelchairs in Missouri. The 10-year-old waiting with autism from her 4th placement in Alabama, etc. Driving home, he broke the silence. I can't do this, Lee. I'm not mature enough. And they got pregnant within the month. My son is here today, being Sunday, dropped off from the group home he's lived in since turning 18. At my door, he grins. He has no speech, must be fed and diapered, blind in one eye and missing teeth. He curls on the floor, shaped in a C, ear pressed to the Bluetooth speaker. On fine days, like today, we break into glee while the Beatles sing In My Life.
Yeah, what a profound and touching poem. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that.
It really
Leanne.
is. Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that you were able to get into a subject that was hard for you and through this prompt, and seeing it that way. So I really look forward to what you come up with next week. Dare I be so bold as to say that you'll come back? So.
Yeah, thanks so much, Leanne. And
Thanks.
where are you calling from too? I didn't ask.
Oh, San Francisco.
Well, great.
Nice.
Well, welcome aboard, and hope to see you next week too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was Leanne Collins with Careful Now What She Wishes For. Let's go next to another first-time caller. I believe Debbie Smith. Are you there, Debbie?
Yes, I am.
Hi.
Hey, yeah, great
Hi.
to see you. Yeah, thanks for coming.
I'm happy to be here. I love all the things you do at Rattle.
Well, thanks so much.
Great.
Yeah.
Glad I found it.
So what do you have for us?
I'm going to read C-Section Imperfection.
Okay.
The fearful proclamation came. His heart rate is dropping fast. We have to take him now. Now seemed too long as they doped me up. I could not feel my chest. Was I breathing? I felt the pressure of carving on my belly, the digging and tugging as they reached for his life. Heard only blurred voices, no first cry of arrival, as I merged into the blankness of sleep. Coming back was a chore, aware of my body on the bed, legs somewhere else, still numb. Light seeped into my brain. Foggy focus fell on my husband as my legs floated back to me. Swaddled, our newborn was laid on my breast. A small Band-Aid covered a gash on his tiny cheek. We had chosen to name him Alexander, like Alexander the Great of ancient Greece. He bore the mark of a warrior who put up a fight against a blade and won. The way to cheerful nurse chirped. It was lucky they got him. Cuts happen all the time, mostly behind the ear. The scar will fade over time, we're told. But when? My grown son says he hopes not ever.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Debbie. Yeah, sorry, I had it on mute because I coughed. But
Oh,
but wonderful.
I didn't hear
Thanks so
anything,
much.
so I didn't know.
My bad. I was scrambling to re-unmute. But yeah, wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing that. And where are you calling from? I didn't ask.
I'm in Vero Beach, Florida.
I know Vero Beach. My uncle lives there. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I might even know him.
You may.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. So
Thank
glad you could
you.
be here. Hope you
Well,
come back
thanks
next
for
week
having
too.
me.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was Debbie Smith with C-section imperfection. Let's go next to Jared Campbell.
Hello.
Hey, Jared.
Hey, Jared, great to see you.
Yep. Good to see you. So I wanted to do a persona poem, but my persona didn't want to be in a poem, so it ended up being more than I bargained for. What my persona said last night. He always calls me at night, acting like it's some kind of emergency. Are you free? Can we talk? There's no one else I can talk to. It's the third time he's called me this week, as if I haven't got anything better to do than be interrogated by a struggling poet. Because don't get me wrong, I'm not a muse. I'm a persona, not that he can tell the difference. A muse you worship and record, a persona is different. You have to know a persona. He doesn't know me at all. He doesn't know the names of my dogs. He doesn't know how many cousins I have and where they live. He doesn't know the reason I hate spinach isn't its flavor, but its texture. He never asks the right questions. Or at least he asks the right questions the wrong way. All his questions are motivated. He'd hate for me to tell you that. I bet he'll cut that line and tell himself it's because you have to show, don't tell. But I know the proverb behind that edit is don't tell on yourself. I'll tell you this much. I'm not going to sit here all night and answer questions like, how do you feel about mortality? What have you lost that would make a good poem? Do you think your trauma could become a sonnet? It could, right? Don't you think you'd look good in a sonnet? Do you have any poignant childhood memories that include vivid imagery? Talking to poets is just like talking to cops. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I wasn't born yesterday. I know my rights. I have a right to remain silent. He can sit there with a blank document glowing in his face all night for all I care. I'm going to sit and watch and enjoy his frustration. I'll be eating popcorn, thinking about poets I'd rather be a persona for. Poets who'd take me to Paris to write ekphrastics. But then we'd skip the Louvre and spend all day eating croissants, smoking cigarettes, and people watching instead. Or a poet who'd plant clues to tempt me into investigating a murder. I'd get in over my head, but against all odds survive and identify the killer within a page. I never get to do anything like that. This guy calls me up and says, I need to write a poem. Can you do it for me? And I say, a poem about what? And he says, it could be about anything. About poetry? I don't care. Well, if you don't care about anything, you can't write a poem. I'm done with this guy. I'll sit here judging him, but I won't say a word. He's not getting any poems out of me tonight.
That is great, Jared. So much fun.
That was really funny.
That.
Yeah, I really did. There's so many parts to enjoy about that. I don't even know which one to highlight, so I choose none.
Okay.
Unfortunate. It was really enjoyable, Jared. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jared. As always, a pleasure. Yeah. Jared Campbell with What My Persona Said Last Night.
Perhaps somewhat influenced by Billy Collins' discussion of Persona 2, even though now the current Poetry Space episodes we're doing are just Persona, us talking about them. But yeah.
A lot of Persona coming up tonight.
Interesting.
I wonder why that could be.
I wonder why.
All right. Let's go next to Chelsea McClellan.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Chelsea. Great to see you.
Good to see you too. And my poem is called Good to See You.
Is it really?
Is it? It is. Look at that.
Really, it is.
It's really funny. Okay.
Okay. I'm just going to read it. Good to see you. The ground has always cracked. We stuck our fingers down where the adults had no idea how to answer all our questions. Lingered in our whys, but still missed the panacea. Couldn't know to look for water when the cracking clay was our familiar ground. I didn't know the drought had come again last Sunday when we passed and looked around each other's shoulders at the carpet, tired from the stifled answers, doing good. Before You always said how you admired that I couldn't lie. You understood, but now you're tired too. Too tired to try and listen long, or tell the truth, or lie.
Yeah, great sonnet. Good to see you. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Chelsea.
Thanks.
Thank you, and it is good to see you.
Good to see.
Take
I'm
care.
so glad that we got that in at the beginning.
Definitely.
That would have been a missed opportunity.
Yeah,
otherwise,
phew,
too.
close call. Thanks so much for
Said,
sharing that.
it's decent to see you. It's acceptable to see you. Wouldn't have had the same punchiness.
Definitely not. Yeah, that was good. Good to see you by Chelsea McClellan. Next, let's go to Christiana Doucette.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Christiana. Good to see you.
Well, good to see you too. I have a sonnet as well.
Wow, nice.
Yay.
This one I didn't write until Sunday because Saturday my husband started taking apart our he was going to replace part of a post on our deck, but when he wasn't going to replace the post. He was just going to take the railing that was a little bit rotten. But when he pulled it up, there's a lot more rot there, and it just kept going down until there were like gaps everywhere. And so this just happened. So I've titled it for now, A Decade. He only planned to pull away the rot, but knot hole led to knot, and underneath the top rail through the post the wood was shot with holes and soft. It fell in splintered sheafs. So board by board he dissected the deck, leaving wide gaps that once were solid wood. The plan for a morning fix became a wreck of posts and 2x4s that were no good. To drill down past the surface to the sound took time he hadn't planned to spend that way, and pulling out the riddled planks around the post took up most of his Saturday. To decompose a decade, it takes time, both for rotten woods and words. They rhyme.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's really
great
nice.
sonnet.
Yeah. It's fun
Thank
to
you.
end on the word rhyme in a sonnet, too.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
it
that
definitely
last
is.
word, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, great.
Thanks.
Yeah, I always love a sonnet. Thanks so much for sharing that, Christiana.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Christiana Doucette with a decade. Let's go next to Jeff Stumpo.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, Jeff.
Great to see you. It's been a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it has been. I was wondering if you're going to be here, and he's back. I was going
Yay.
to be sending you an email otherwise. Like, hey.
Yeah, 2 weekends ago, I was volunteering at a regional poetry slam.
That's an
nice.
acceptable reason
We'll
for not
accept
being
it.
here.
Yeah,
We'll
good
accept
Teams
it.
in it. Yeah, I was
Wow.
scorekeeping, and I
Nice.
did a poem at the opening ceremony and a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, very cool,
fun.
yeah.
So I continue to write little poems this month that are just stretching muscles in the service of writing other things because I keep experimenting with forms.
Great.
So you've got a palindromic poem here. With
interesting.
modest apologies for language. And it's called Fatherhood is the Shit. You'd be amazed at becoming a father. Shit you thought you were prepared for, not at all the shit before you. Yet every day, little successes before you, the shit not at all prepared for, you thought you were shit at becoming a father. You'd be amazed.
Well, that is really fun. Yeah.
I think you just made me like the word shit more. So thanks for that. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, that does help.
I feel better about it now. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Jeff. Yeah,
Thanks.
another fun
All
one.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It was Jeff Stumpo with Fatherhood is the Shit.
You said that one nicely.
There you
too.
go. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Let's go next to Brian O'Sullivan.
Hello.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian. Great to see you.
I have a brief anecdote that I wanted to share with Brian. I thought where better to share it than on the Rattlecast, which is Tim and I were at this Houston gathering of poets called Poets Northwest, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And actually, Tim read your poem, Reentry. And we read a bunch of poems. We read our own poems and everything. But I have to say, when he read your poem, everyone gasped at the ending. Like there, it was like this really nice moment. And afterwards, I was like, oh, I wish Brian could have heard like how it sounded to have his poem read.
They
And
definitely did,
everyone
yeah.
really loved it. Such a great poem. Reigning prompt poet of the month.
It went over okay when I read it, but I'm sure it went over much better with him.
Well, I didn't read it. Tim read it. So, yeah.
So, I was glad to hear um, Beer talk about the idea that when she was talking about the Virginia Woolf poem, um, the idea that we should not talk about suicidality because there's a little bit of that in this, and then the rest is what I didn't bargain for. It's called Volunteers in Service to America, Region 8, Disorientation, 1991, After 500 Miles by Peter, Paul, and Mary. In a Hilton conference room that smells a little bit of Lysol, a Jesus-looking guy named Bloom is singing Peter, Mary, and Paul. If you miss the train I'm on, he is singing for us all. You will know that I am gone. We who might be headed for Pueblo or Salt Lake, from Toledo or Long Island, hear the whistle blow. We who left to serve our peers or forget a crush or, I don't know, 500 miles to get in gear away from home, maybe to break down. No family, no friends, no nothings here. Just a vague job in a strange town. Not a penny to my name. Maybe I'll go to the coast and drown. Maybe I'll never be the same. And so there is nothing, one day, but a razor blade and shame. Suspense. Lord, I can't go home this way. But I make a call near dawn. Then there is a siren on the freeway, and at the hospital a man named John sings, I swear, the train I'm on. And I fly home. I carry on.
Yeah, well, great use of the rhyme there. That line, and there's nothing one day but a razor blade and shame.
Yeah.
What a powerful line there. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. Pleasure.
That was Brian O'Sullivan, our reigning prompt poet of the month.
I also joked at the meeting that we were going to get a sash for the reigning prompt poet of the month.
And then how will we deliver the sash from
I don't know. That sounds a little complicated. And then I want to buy everybody flowers. And this is just a mess now. We can't do these things.
Well, one day when we have the Poetry Foundation's resources,
yeah.
Spend it all.
We'll spend it on flowers
sashes.
for the poets.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to Jackie Chow, who we saw Rick Lupert's reading.
Of course.
Yeah, great to see you. Thanks for coming on, Jackie.
Yes, this is actually my first time coming to a Rattlecast.
Great.
Great. And you came for so long to our reading series, though, when it was in LA. So
when it was in LA,
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, well, great to see you again, Jackie.
Good to see you, too. Okay, I have a poem for last week's prompt. And I hope I don't get kicked out when I look for it. Okay, here it is.
It's totally fine for this week. Moving forward, next time we'll see with the poem of that week. But I'm so excited to hear, and I'm so glad you're here. So
thanks for the room.
Yes,
I know. Tim was like staying silent.
Well, you are.
Jackie's so sweet. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is called Buried in an Obscure Poetry Prize. Nobody cared about the poem in the display case. The words forced into silence on the page, never recited, the way the syllables should have rolled off my tongue, sweet like watermelon candy. Words known only to me, like a childhood scar, I can still feel with my fingers pressed against the engraving of my name on the metal plate of the wooden plaque I clutched so tightly. Nobody noticed anything except maybe the picture accompanying the poem, in which I look like Brenda from the show 90210 with my raven hair and bangs, if even that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for sharing. They had a fun turn in that one.
Yeah.
The Beverly Hills 90210. It's been a long time since I.
Yes, I don't look like that anymore.
Well, it's great to have you on. Thanks so much for coming, Jackie. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, it was Jackie Chow with Buried in an Obscure Poetry Prize. All right, let's go to Dick Westheimer next.
Hello, all.
Hey, Dick. Great to see you. Glad you made it.
I cannot wait to hear the Roberta Beary. I just got home a little bit ago from synagogue and just happy I could jump on and can't wait to hear the Roberta Beary. And coincidentally wrote a Haibun without even thinking that I was going to be held in comparison to her. Quick Billy Collins-ism that I was reminded of when you talked about the response to Brian's poem is he talks about that as a change in barometric pressure.
Yeah, that's a
that
good
happens
one.
in a room after a poem like that is read. So here is my Haibun with my very first monoku ever.
Wow. Yay!
Yay! Yes, I'm being converted. What is gotten in the dry times? Like a white fountain of flowers, Queen Anne's lace erupts from the middle of the field. Through binoculars, they seem sole survivors of the drought that marches across the Midwest like an army of doubt. Of course, other living things persist in these breezeless days. The black gum trees and their deep roots, the little blue stem whose buried seeds have prepared decades for times such as this. The ants who drink dew from dead stems of grass. The purple salvia by the front porch my wife soaks from a pot of pasta water. All night still the call of field crickets. Jacob, the grain farmer who sells us straw, says he walked his dusty corn 40 yesterday. I was surprised the ears were fat as my forearm, he reports, but they're only half filled out. He doubts he'll make enough to pay down his combine loan. He spits a dark chaw as he tosses the last bale from his trailer before backing the rig around the tight corner of our barn like he's a dancer tracing a delicate arc. Farming, more or less than he bargained for.
Yeah, very, very nice use of the form, Dick. Yeah.
Yeah, and so interesting because it circled so far, I felt, from the prompt and then really went right back to the prompt with the haiku at the end. Bam! Yeah.
hammered the nail. I did a number of these, not this form, but I found that there's a lot that's more than I've bargained for. So it was an interesting prompt, even just to think about without necessarily writing all the poems, just all the things. So yeah, good recovery from last week's.
I was afraid you're gonna hate this one too. I'm like, Dick Westheimer may not be happy. I hope it goes well for him this week, and it did. So.
Yeah, of course. You live for me to think that your prompts are train wrecks. So anyway, appreciate it.
Thanks, Dick.
All right, thanks, Dick.
Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah, there's Dick Westheimer with What Is Gotten in the Dry Times. Let's go to Jamina Erichavala next.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a bit of a longer poem. Hi. So I'm going to jump right in.
Okay.
So it's called 13 Seasons of Snow. I paid a country for a man and gained a different country in return for a while. I gave away the jacaranda trees and got the giant maples in their place, their bones in January rising from the earth as hands of overgrown angels holding the light. We slept on a mattress on the floor. We had humble jobs and counted our cents for the bus fare. We were birds. We were pavement dandelions growing in the cold. I knew this man. Once he stopped me in the sad grocery store where he worked to explain the night in the countryside, a quiet unspooling of time, an overcrowding of stars. I gave him whatever my life was and gained, and can't lose now, the print of his fingerprints across the back of my neck. I gained and lost a secret language. For years, I lost my solid form, became water dissolving in water pulled by a fast river, with no fingers to hold on to a rock or a branch and stop. I lost the rain that sings on tile roofs and pine trees. I got the rain that pelts the sidewalks with ice. My spine broke and healed. I learned how to take the pounding of a storm. I've come back to the mountains and the sun. I love the man. He's not my husband anymore. He still calls me every day, warbling songs of wonder and dread. I'm staying sober, he says. They're raising the rent. I can barely make it to the end of the month as it is. The job remains hard and badly paid. The leaves have begun to red. The sky is blooming into roses. The cat is sweet. The cat is an asshole. The cat became friends with a raccoon now. The raccoon sleeps on the cypress outside the balcony. The moon is a velvet petal of a violet. Look, here's a picture of the moon. We no longer love each other like lovers. I can't fathom the tally of what we gained and what we lost. What remains is an ache below the shoulder blades, where the skin remembers the shadow of its feathers. For a while, we were sparrows in a blizzard. We suffered the wind together, and we flew.
Oh, another beautiful poem. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Jamina.
Thank
that
you.
was great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That was Jamina Erichavala with 13 Seasons of Snow. Next, let's go to another first-time caller, I think, maybe Michelle Kimball.
Hi, yes, this is actually my first time ever reading one of my poems aloud. And I had I had the wrong prompt, so I actually wrote this in between times because I really wanted to be a part of hearing other people's poetry and discussing poetry. So this was written very quickly, but I will share it.
Great.
So I wrote the title, Do They Still Have Dollar Tables Here? Trade it in, push the ATM button, watch the money disappear. Can't hold these chips too long. Jingle jangle in my pocket. Smoke, cough, wrong seat. Can we renegotiate the price? The $25 table is too rich for me. My 4 chips are gone. Gonna call it a night.
Yeah. Love the brevity of that. Thanks so much for sharing that, and thanks for being here.
And you've now shared a poem out loud. So way to go.
Really wonderfully done. Yeah, love that first time.
Maybe next time I'll turn my camera on too.
Yay!
Baby steps.
Well, so good.
Baby
Yeah, well,
steps.
so good
That's
to be
great.
here. And where are you calling from?
From Dallas.
Oh, great. Yeah, not too far from
Yep.
us. All right. Well, good to see you, and hope to see you next week.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. So once again, that was Michelle Kimball with I don't see the title on here. Amateur is what the subject line's called. That wasn't the title though. But anyway, yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that, Michelle. Next, let's go to Kevin Lemaster.
Hello.
Hi,
hey, Kevin. Yeah, so glad you came back. Good to see you.
Yeah, I made it. I had another poetry engagement earlier today, so just barely made it under the gun.
Well, good. Yeah, full day of poetry. Sounds like
So to preface this poem, we recently took my handicapped sister in because both of her parents are passed, and my wife is her caregiver. So this is about the rigors of Social Security. Payee status. After her dad dies, her parentless eyes sadden when she realizes they will never come back. She's oblivious of death's clear picture, and we will tell her again and again that heaven is a place where parents go when they die, and she is content until the next time. Social Security has realived both parents for the sake of denying money that is owed her. Like all things that are difficult since the current political climate, the mentally handicapped are slowly made into second-class citizens. I have gotten more than I bargained for, but I wouldn't have it any other way when her smile holds back all the earth's moral decay.
Yeah, touching last line. Thanks so much for sharing that, Kevin.
Yeah, thank
Thanks.
you.
Yeah, that was Kevin Lemaster with payee status. To call AM Jester, get him on the case.
Yeah.
All right, let's go next to Matt Joseph.
Hi, guys.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
Hey, Matt. Yeah, good to see
Hey,
you.
I sent a silly one-line revision. I don't know if you got it, and no big deal if not. And I'll just give a brief bit of exposition before this, which I don't usually do. There's a volcano in Hawaii where I was at for a conference that a friend and I have been talking. It's a 10,000-foot volcano that we've been talking about biking up for the last 10 years. And I saw a bumper sticker that didn't capture this exactly, but it said, we do this not because it is easy, but because we thought it would be easy.
That's great.
And we didn't think that, but it was more than we thought. So anyways, so biking up Haleakala. She stands 10,000 feet, ocean to peak, mother of clouds, daughter of sky. We're pedaling up the slope of her face and the slant of our age, my friend and I. At night, her crown is darker than dark, the Milky Way overhead, a spilled bucket of stars. Right now, halfway up, bright sun, 10 a.m., we flash eyeball death lasers at each passing car. By the time we crest the final incline, our lungs are dry ash, hearts a fistful of matches that burnt to their stubs 2 miles ago. But this is the realm where the dream catcher catches. The wolf in my chest always howling why, to which I respond when I finally can breathe. I don't know the tint of my ancestors' eyes, just as the future will soon forget me. And someday the sun will swallow itself, and our planet will have no more bargains to plea. So name one thing better to do with this day than stand at the top of a mountain I climbed with a friend and look out at the sea.
Yeah, well, really well said. Yeah. Biking up Haleakala.
Haleakala. Yeah.
Haleakala.
And now we know what it's like, so we don't have to. So thank
Yeah, you never
I thought maybe you'd be inspired to go do it.
I know, but I love riding my bike, but like mountain biking up, that sounds
That
more.
does sound very
I already
exciting.
tore my rotator cuff just riding around here. So
Awesome. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt.
Mhm.
Yeah, Matt Joseph with biking up. I'm not going to say it again.
I know. I was thinking, like, are you going to try to say?
Haleakala.
That sounds pretty.
Okay, whatever. All right, let's go to Steve Horrell.
Hi. I'm mute.
Hey, Steve. Yeah, great to see you.
Often I write about a half a poem for the prompts and then never send them in. This one sort of came fairly quickly. Immediately, I thought of my first date with my wife, and it was at a drive-in theater. Which, back when I was young, we were often in high school. We often referred to them as Passion Pit. But at any rate, so the title of this is "The Empire Strikes Back," playing at the drive-in theater.
Oh,
yeah.
Wanted to ask someone to go with me. Someone not too glossy, with a bit of steel, but still somewhat childlike. Maybe get lucky. Farm girl from southern Ontario, apprentice carpenter. We built a house together. We married at the local courthouse, 8 months pregnant. The receptionist, our witness. 2 daughters. Sunday mornings, I often made big puffy pancakes in the oven. The skin of years, layer on layer. Her humor dry, sharp as splintered slate. 40 years lucky to get more than I bargained for.
Aw, that's a really sweet poem.
That's really sweet. And I want to go to. We've never been to a drive-in movie
we
theater,
haven't.
and I was just saying this the other week. We have to go.
We do, yeah,
that
yeah.
really makes me want to go.
There aren't any left in our area.
Yeah, well, there's one around
There's one
here, right?
around
Like,
here in Houston.
yeah.
We found it, but we haven't managed to find the time yet. But we
Yeah,
will.
Definitely,
So-
yeah. Well, thanks. That was really
Thanks,
sweet.
that
Thanks
was
for
really
sharing that,
sweet.
Steve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. There's Steve Horrell with The Empire Strikes Back playing at the drive-in theater. Next, let's go to Laura Berg.
Hello.
Hi,
Hey, Laura. Yeah, great to see you.
What a great variety of poems we
Yeah,
have.
they've been really great tonight. I really enjoyed this prompt line segment.
Maybe I took it the most literally. We'll see. Okay. The bargain. What was our relationship? Not sinister, though it could feel edgy. There he'd sit in his fez cap and robe, head tilted, half smile, hands folded over a slight pot, soft fingers drumming. He'd nod, sense my mood, then choose a textile to match, like a heart-stopping Kermes red hand-woven shawl I'd covet. On a bench draped in carpets, I like to sit and see those weavings bloom before me like corals undulating on a reef. I like to feel cool inside that shop, sheltered from the narrow, crowded street beyond where the warm human current pulsed. And I like to drink his tea, push with my tongue those pine nuts floating on top, and feel like a friend, though I knew I was not, I was just a customer, or maybe not just. I was a customer, perhaps a special status, better than feeling lost. He'd name a price, and I'd say less, not quite sure I'd made a bargain. I never quite fathomed the souk, or why I kept going there and buying. I would just come back the way good customers do, like angelfish swimming into a net and then staying very still.
I love that. Yeah, metaphor at the
Yeah,
end. It's
wow.
great. The bargain.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, really vivid. Thanks so much for sharing
Thank you,
that,
Laura.
Yeah. There's Laura Berg with The Bargain. Let's see. Next, let's go to Tina Denniclaw.
Oh, I'm here.
Hi.
Hey, Tina. Yeah, glad
Oh
you
my
could make
gosh.
it.
Oh, did it undo it? Okay. All right. Okay. So, I'm just going to start reading the poem.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Sleight of hand. Rides were running with empty seats. It was a starless summer night, not quite lit by the carnival lights strung along the lots. Sparsely attended, it felt like a quiet walk through a museum of shadows and glitz. My husband sat down at the pony races, along with the 3 preteen boys. Sit and toss a ball into concentric rings laid out on each tilted desk, and move your pony's nose. Move my cat. I have a lot of help here. The center ring will get you a length. My husband's horse moved steadily across the track. The 3 behind his balked and lunged, straining to advance. Oh, man. The boys were feeling their vellum chins fail beside my husband's muscled chest. Someday, they would wear strength and skill like a well-fitted shirt, but not this day. Another race, another disgrace for the pre-adolescent trio. Then another and another, bored with their slender-armed inability to overtake this dude, they rose to go and threw glances of homage to the master of the track. No one left to contend. We bid our leave too, and walked a dark and dusty path. You must have hit the center ring every single toss. Yeah, pretty much. But that's not the only reason I left those kids in the dirt. My deck had 2 balls.
Funny turn at the end. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Thanks, You're welcome.
Tina. Yeah, thanks, Tina. Yeah, that was Tina Denniclaw with Sleight of Hand. And let's see, is there anybody still on the Zoom we haven't got to yet? I think not. Let's go to, do we have a Ted Guevara? We do have a Ted Bernal Guevara poem. Ted says, Dear Tim and Katie, in the likeness of Matthew Thorburn's winning poem last week, I offer these 2. Instead of profound, there's more tragedy in mine. Incomplete last lines offer uncertainty. Well, do we allow 2 poems, Katie, or another ruling?
We don't allow.
We don't,
2
just
poems.
one.
Sorry,
we'll do
Ted,
the debate.
but we are happy to read it for you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Debate. Oop, there you go. Even facial tics stand ground. Eyelids, cheeks, mouth all say, there is bargain here. We move to emit signs of conviction, to spew personal stones, slit to enter young minds. There is no uncaring here. Those were bones afloat within. I'm here to excavate and replace them with rough decency. I stand on a podium with curtains. Bullseye? Fine. Zero in on a cheek or on... Great cliffhanger cut off any there. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It was Debate by Ted Bernal Guevara. Thanks for sharing that, Ted. And I do believe that is going to wrap up the open lines. Let's go to the closing haiku. Now, Katie and I went to the country for a nice weekend away a bit. Did a little poetry on the way out. And so I wrote a couple haiku about, a few haiku about the country we were at, a little central Texas-ish. And here's one of them right here. So few fireflies finding each other.
I love that haiku.
Oh, well, thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, there are a few, but not many.
Oh, that's really a great haiku.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks so much.
Sorry.
Glad you like it.
Yeah.
So that is our haiku. Always fun to get a little haiku down.
Yeah.
And that is going to close up the show. Now, next week's prompt, Katie, is going to be what?
We are going to, hopefully Jared Campbell is listening. We're going to write a persona poem that includes the word prompt.
Ah, there you go. So definitely something to make sure it's not just any old persona poem.
Well, I thought about just saying write a prompt persona poem, but I thought that might be leaving too much
wiggle room.
Yeah,
definitely.
too much wiggle room. Every poem that you write within the span of a week and get ready to share with people could be called a prompt poem, even aside from it having been written from a prompt.
That's true, yeah.
A lot of prompt levels potential in this week. I'm sure Jared Campbell will find all of them.
And a nod, of course, to the current episode of the Poetry Space, which just came out, talking about persona poems. You can find that at iTunes. That's Katie's show, which we graciously you graciously let us be there.
It is very gracious of me to allow you and the squad to work so
Definitely.
diligently on the show. Yeah. No, I'm grateful to you all, too.
So check that out. If you don't even know what a persona poem is, there's a great place to start.
I would say
the
so.
Poetry Space. So find that on anywhere you get your podcasts. All right. So write a persona poem that includes the word prompt is your prompt. And next week's guest on the Rattlecast is going to be, what did I do? There we go. Isabella Descendi. So Isabella is one of those poets that few poets come along like this, where they were just great submissions for the Rattle Poetry Prize a couple years ago. So we published one of them.
I remember those.
Poem from my Uncle Tio?
Yeah.
Is that the one? What's the title? Yeah, and then we published a few others in a later issue because that's what we do. If you get like a bunch of good poems, we publish the one finalist and then some later. And at the time, they were very consistent across the style. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, these are going to make a great book someday. And well, now the book is here.
Yay!
Someone Else's Hunger is the book. Isabella Descendi is the guest. That's going to be Monday, September 29th, the regular time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Also with your persona poems that include the word prompt. That's next week at the Rattlecast number 311. Hope you have a great week in the meantime. And we'll talk to you later. Good night.
Good night.